he oversees the operations, and he has a great interest in preserving the files. The big problem is that all of the things I had mentioned before about running an organization, finances, personnel, and all are sadly lacking. It's very difficult to get people to do this because the organizations tend to exist only in a few places, and you have to draw from from those locations to be able to get working personnel to do things. And UFOs are admittedly a very arcane subject, and people can't be paid very well. Most of the help comes by volunteers, and they can do good work, but it's difficult to get a consistency to having an organization be successful. Money is the most important thing. It's just not there. It's not. UFOs used to be a major topic in the media, and up until recent times it had slipped off. But with the revelations of Navy UFO reports in late 2017, it's somewhat revived, but it's still not completely there. So we're hoping that is a surge of new interest on the part of the public, and we're trying to preserve the information so that they can see what constituted the history of the phenomenon.
Well, how can we all work together? Because we've got so many people that are waking up to the fact that this may be a real part of our reality. It's not just in our minds, and we're doing our best to work with ACO Association and the consciousness and spiritual science, ET science part of that. And then we've got some other groups that I've been working with for at least 7 years on the radio. Mad Painter here has been working with 90 radio people, and Ken has been working with other people, and whether we approve of them or appreciate them or not, like Richard Hoagland, and I don't know, Ken's just been a face at some of these around. And then, of course, I went by Roswell UFO Museum years ago and met Glenn Dennis and Walter what was her name? Sally Hester was running that museum library at the time, and they had just gotten in a lot of paperwork. And it seems that there's, like you said, they're spread out. So help us out here, you and Jan. I hope you guys are going to help us do a brain think tank mastermind, because we want to know all the people that you feel like around the world that you just know honorable mention, like Dr. Bruce Maccabee mentioned Jan, and then he told me about you. So you see how it works, but we all don't know each other even. We got a network, right?
Yeah, it's a network. It's like a chain. Everybody knows another link further up the chain that other people don't know about. So they all tend to bind together and try to do the same thing, but sometimes with different philosophies about what the phenomenon is. But I think they're all trying to get to the same goal in getting good information out. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but we just pick up the pieces and go on from there. The big problem is, like I said, the organizations are located in a few locations that are hard to access for, I think, a majority of the public. And what we're trying to do to alleviate that is to get the material electronically scanned so that you don't have to travel to these places and dig through files and spend a lot of money and at hotels and maintaining the presence for a week or two, which it really doesn't accomplish much when you're dealing with a large amount of information. You can get a few things done, but overall you'd like to spend a lot more time, and most people can't do that. So if we make the information available electronically on different websites, that would help a lot to educate people on what the subject's all about. And that's what we're actively trying to do.
Well, we're going to do our best to hook up links like I did back in the early days in the government, and just set up links like we do for universities and libraries. But this is a daunting task, and I've always been interested in the UFO business. But we're going to try to add RSS feeds if everybody out there is listening. That if you have if you're contributing and paying for your own server or web hosting, or even if it's just a WordPress blog or skin, we'd like to talk to you and see if you can help us help Jan Aldrich and Barry Greenwood starting this huge project with QFOs and NUFOs. Tell us the other groups that you're working with, please, that are already associated.
Probably Jan can speak more to that than I can. I tend to be isolated in those stacks looking through things, and I don't network that much, but I think Jan can help. Hold
okay, on. Well, we may be able to get back to you if you find some certain ones or names that have mentioned of anybody that's, like you said, been sort of a cottage industry since J. Allen Hynek has passed. So you could collect those names if they're willing to allow them to be, orally talked about here, where this gets saved. You want Jan to tell us anything about the different groups? And Matt and Ken, I'm sure, have questions, but you want to put Jan on the phone then?
Yeah, okay, I'm here.
Hi, Jan. Give us an idea of the various groups that you've got involved with helping you, or any names, because Dr. Bruce Maccabee asked me to assist with the AI of the intelligence world. He was our national director, but his wife, Jan, up there in that area near Chicago and Ohio. Now, Jan has stepped up to help us with social media on Facebook, and we've got a lot of people out there with groups and our moderators, plus various UFO radio shows or just talk shows that are willing to ask us to help them with names they can bring on. So with all that said, can you help us out here with some of the stuff and the groups? And now we're looking for how can we make all of this better so we know each other and people don't slip through, because, they don't have to be in the limelight for their clubs or associations. A lot of them slip through the cracks. Like a postman, right? You lose their letter.
Yeah. I think the main problem in ufology is everybody wants to be a general and nobody wants to be a private. Nobody wants to do grunt work. And see, I'm here with Barry Greenwood, and he's, he won't let me do any serious work here. He told me to do 1970. I mean, there's hardly any records for 1970.
Oh, he gets and to have all the fun,
I'm in the other room there, and he told me, don't come back in here anymore, because I keep asking him, are we there yet? Are we there yet? He said, go back there and stop.
How many years does he have?
He says, listen, you're supposed to scan the files, not just read them. And I'm having a lot of trouble with him. He's actually, that's what we're doing here. We're doing this is a big grunt work project. It's a real pain, and Barry's going through 1957. Well, that's when NICAP started, and that was the year it was a giant flap in November, and he just had a handful of clippings that had been stapled together and hadn't been touched since November of 1957.
Whoa.
It's just a giant ball of newspaper clippings, which he had to go ahead and mount, and so we could scan them. The amount of press in 1957 is just unbelievable. It's probably only surpassed by 52 or 67. It's 66, 67. It's incredible amount of press here that, quite frankly, some of the stuff, the origins, the newspapers that had it in there don't exist anymore, and in some cases the stories, may not have. This may be the only copies here in a lot of cases. Anyways, yeah. So what? Michael Swords heads we're just colleagues. I won't say he heads it, but he's the first among equals. The history group, we've got about 40 people that work in that one way or another. And the product of that was UFOs in Government, the book. We've got 10 co-authors on that. Michael Swords and Robert Powell are the main editors, and then we have a fellow from Spain who wrote on the Spanish UFO files, and we had one from Australia that wrote about government interaction with UFOs in Australia. So we've got a worldwide selection of people that are involved here. We've Klaus Svahn, he wrote about the Swedish archives. Swedish archives are completely open. There's just a few things that you still can't get. Back to the 1946 Ghost Rocket era, and then the modern stuff. And the Swedes, of course, were one of the first because they started with the Ghost Rockets, and right after the Ghost Rockets finished, UFOs came on the scene, and some of the same engineers in the air intelligence handled that. It was just a continuation of what they had been doing before. So we have a number of contacts worldwide in Italy, the UK, Australia, Canada. As far as organizations other than MUFON, there's not very many active organizations doing serious work. When I was at CUFOS, I talked to Dr. John Reed, who has the Fortean, Charles Fort's notes.
Wow!
He got him quite by accident. This fellow had him in his house.
Yeah. Share that story.
This fellow was he had his house, and he was getting ready to move, and he had all these cabinets, and they were full of the Fort's notes. And he was getting ready to throw Fort's notes out, and somehow he thought that maybe he should contact somebody. And
whoa. John
went up there, and it was just amazed at what he got. So he works at a university, and he has access to some money. So he got the notes. And he's got some people in the Philippines who, they can read English, and he's got them working on organizing the notes. And then there's Mr. X, and that's his official name. He had his name changed to Mr. X in Canada. He is verifying the entries because Fort was very I mean, he had his own shorthand for things.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
American Philosophical Society